So welcome everyone. It's good to be back. Welcome to those who are new as well. And let's see, and if you're new, please go ahead if you would like to say hello in the chat. And welcome back to everyone who's been with us for a bit. It is good to be back. If anyone is joining us from the UK, God bless you at this time of night in the UK. You're much more dedicated than I am since it's like midnight in the UK. But cheers. You have a new king in the UK. Congratulations. That's what many people have always wanted, a very disconnected father to rule your country. That's wonderful. Another one. Not my king, right? But who cares? I'm really not a British citizen. But I do feel for you in many ways. But so I'm back, and it was a really great trip. Thank you all for for holding this space while I've been away. And thank you to all our practice leaders, to Karen and to Eric for facilitating so much. It's been really wonderful as well. Yeah, I'm a little bit under the weather. I've been in and out of climates for a couple of weeks, so my sinuses don't like that. So I'm just getting over a little bit of a sinus infection. But this is a perfect, way to come into Medicine Buddha. There's sickness. We offer the sickness into really, and we lay it at the feet of Medicine Buddha as well. So let's see. And yeah, thank you all for joining me for Free Radicals last week. I hope it was fun, good experience. And just to remind you, we have our prayer requests up. So if you want to go ahead and just type in a prayer request, and that link is in the chat. And I'll offer those prayers during our practice as well. Any questions that I can explore, maybe directly related to questions you've had since I've been away, or questions related to practice that could be helpful as well. You can put those in the chats as well. Today is questions may or may not come in, but today in our practice, it seems I'm very interested right now in what it means to make offerings. And I often use the language of offering to the deity. And this, of course, comes out of really like traditional Tibetan Buddhist Vajrayana offering practices. And I'm thinking more of the mandala offering. And the mandala offering is something that you would do in the initial sets of practices that we all do to kind of come into the traditional path of Vajrayana. And mandala is about offering, it's about generosity. And I've done a lot with trying to understand that kind of offering. as well. The traditional mandala offering is imagining that you're offering the whole universe, right, to what's called the field of refuge. So a refuge tree, which would be, all the teachers and deities and so forth of the lineage. And you just offer over and over again the whole universe. And you like make a mudra. This is the mudra right here. It looks, it's a sacred mudra, though it does look profane, but maybe that's on purpose. But it's a little complicated. But so my two raised fingers in the center here, these two raised fingers here, they represent Mount Meru. And Mount Meru is like the central mountain in the universe. And then my four fingers here, let me see, these and these in the back, they represent these four satellite islands around the main universal mountain in the universe. And so this whole mudra represents offering everything, right? And then in front of you, maybe you are visualizing the refuge tree, which is the lineage, right, of all the deities and teachers of the lineage that you're practicing at, right? And then and so that's more of the kind of ceremonial thing that one may do before a teaching. So if you go to a traditional Tibetan monastery for a talk or teaching, you have a series of prayers that you go through that just kind of set up the talk, right? Some of them, the one's taking refuge, another one is awakening bodhicitta, then the other one is making an offering. Another prayer is asking the teacher to teach, and asking the teacher and all bodhisattvas to remain in the world, right? Because it is a choice for awakened beings to be here. It's nothing that outside of compassion that compels beings to help, right? So when you're realizing that, you're making a choice to experience suffering, in order to help others, and the suffering gets overwhelming, then it's easy for awakened beings to say, you know what, fuck it. I can just go somewhere else, or I can just go back into my primordial state, which is emptiness, space, and energy, right? And more and more, I really understand the power of that kind of prayer, of really just like, for me on my end, right, it's just a prayer of deep gratitude that you don't have to be here, but you are, and I'm deeply grateful for that. So anyway, going back to mandala, right, and offering. So you're offering the universe, right, and that generates merit and good karma because you're cultivating a sense of generosity. Generosity is really just an expression of understanding that everything's empty and awakened and free to begin with. Everything emerges from that training, right? That all the most important work that we could possibly do in samsara to get free and to actually help others is rooted within our experience of emptiness, right? That there is no there, right? And that embodiment of that truth awakens profound qualities that can be really powerful in reducing harm and suffering for oneself, right? And also as an expression for all beings. When we're offering, like when we're making some of these traditional offerings, right? It's on one hand, yes, you're thinking I am offering the universe to my whole lineage, to my refuge tree. I guess a substitute for us would be like the groups of the seven homecomings. The seven homecomings would be a refuge tree, which is where it came from also. So you're offering to all your mentors and teachers and communities and so forth. So on one hand, you're generating this deep, expansive attitude that everything is offered, right? Even my body, whatever I consider wealth, all the good qualities, all the things that feel pleasant and joyful, everything, including all the shit, that feels like suffering. I offer both suffering and joy to all the beings who love me, right? So on one hand, that feels like you're offering the material world, but really the deeper experience of this generosity is that we're reminding ourselves that we're offering emptiness back into emptiness. And that over time becomes a practice that deepens or awakens a kind of profound spaciousness in our experience, right? That, yeah, it initially is very hard to imagine offering all the universe, right? Everything in the universe, but over time you're realizing, oh, I'm just offering emptiness back to emptiness. And once you get into that mindset, right, there is a deepening that's, of course, feels spacious, but also it begins to feel, it feels freeing, of course, but it also begins to feel, over time, it begins to feel like you're connecting to the dream like quality of all phenomena, right? I know words are kind of hard to put together when you get into these super esoteric practices, but like you're realizing that the things you're attached to or the things that you're averse to are all just expressions of emptiness, right? And you begin to lose this kind of relationship to phenomena where it's like, oh, I don't like this, but I love this. That begins to dissolve and you begin to tune into the essential nature, which is emptiness, right? And when you're offering, you're like, oh, the suffering that I'm offering, the nature of the suffering is empty, right? So when I offer it back to the feet of whatever, my refuge, my several homecomings, the deity, I'm just offering emptiness back to these beings who themselves realize that they are also expressions of emptiness. So I'm offering emptiness back to emptiness. And once you start getting that idea or that understanding, then that's when you begin to realize what's the word? You begin to experience the fruition, the ultimate fruition of this practice, right? If that makes sense. Right, there's a freedom that begins to emerge when you understand that you're actually not offering anything and you're offering emptiness back into emptiness. So it's like you're offering water back into water, right? Or light back into light. or soil back to soil, right? Which are also really powerful offerings and ceremonies, themselves, right? But there's an ease that begins to happen when you're tuning into that kind of truthful, like I'm offering emptiness back to emptiness, right? There is nothing, there's no difference between the offering of, I don't know, light. Like, you offer, I don't know, this crystal, like I'm going to offer this crystal, right, to the feet of the deity. And then you realize, oh, there's nothing here. So I'm offering emptiness back into the experience of a being that already realizes that they're empty. Um, and again, all of this begins to culminate into an experience where the realness, the edgy, heavy realness of the phenomenal world begins to decrease. It begins to dissolve a little bit. And there's this incredible space that begins to open up, right? And also this incredible fluidity that you're constantly beginning to offer everything back over and over and over again, right? You're letting go, you're opening, you're relaxing, right? And these should be the things that we experience as we deepen our offering practice, but also when you actually bring this practice into acts of generosity that we're doing in the world, in our daily lives, right? There should be an opening, a fluidity, a relaxing when we choose to offer, to give as well. So everything, as we've been talking about in past sessions, everything is an expression of the deity. Everything is an expression of our minds, right? Which is only to say that everything arises from emptiness, space, energy, right? Our consciousness, our minds are just intelligent expressions of energy, right? Energy that knows itself, right? Right. And then over time, just contemplating this, let alone practicing, but a deep contemplation of these themes, these ideas can actually begin to create and awaken a lot of spaciousness in our experience as well. Of course, the space, right, this emptiness of space is the birthplace of all phenomena, right? Everything arises from the conditions of space and emptiness and energy that begins to be shaped into phenomena, right? And it's our consciousness, right, which is intelligent energy that begins to shape phenomena, right? So we begin to dream into being or arrange into being a reality. And of course, one of the theories in this tradition is that at some point we forgot, right? That what was being created wasn't real, and we kind of got lost in the creation and the realness, right? And that gave rise to samsara, which I call the carceral state, because in carcerality, then you get trapped, you know, in the realness of everything. You have no agency, you know, anymore, but that loss of agency is only an illusion. Therefore, the path of Dharma, right, one of the many paths, right, in this world system has arisen as a training to remind us of who and what we are. So we start divesting from creating phenomena and reinvesting and resting within our innate awareness, which is a quality of our consciousness, you know. And we talk about the world, we talk about the violence and everything that's happening in the world. And yes, on one end, it is absolutely happening on the relative, right? But when we examine the ultimate, we understand, oh, this isn't happening at the same time. And compassion arises not to actually help us bypass, right, the relative, but compassion actually helps us to hold space for this experience of realness and to help others do the work of letting go or helping beings divest from this participation in the harm of the relative and reinvest in resting back in their ultimate natures, right? And that begins to disrupt the creation and production of the carceral state. And that's when our awakening and enlightenment begin to reemerge. Like we begin to say, oh, I was distracted with this, you know, so I'm going to pull my energy back to just being, holding space, abiding, right? And slowly the phenomenal world dissolves and you return back to consciousness, abiding in space and emptiness, right? And to even maybe realize also that we are all expressions of the same consciousness as well, big mind, right? As we would talk about in Zen Buddhism, big mind. Like there's collective consciousness, or like the hive, the Borg, right? And in Star Trek, but you know, we're not these artificial cyborgs traveling the galaxy, assimilating other cultures and other planets. That's called colonialism, actually. Um, but in this idea of big minds, it's about abiding in the essence, you know, of all phenomena, right? And this is what we're always coming back to. Like, if all of Buddhism was just this one huge koan, the answer would always be emptiness. Right? If Buddhism was always asking you to do something and you don't know what it is, then always the choice would be, oh, I should just practice compassion, right? You know, compassion actually is an expression of emptiness as well. It's based on emptiness, right? This is, you know, of course, very difficult because we think, again, we're so fixated around the sense of self, the self-existing entity of me, and to say, well, I don't exist, actually can create a lot of anxiety and terror for some of us, right? Because who are we if we're not me? Like who am I if I'm not suffering? You know? Well, your space, your emptiness, right? And it's hard to let go of the entertainment and the drama of the world, right? Because we think that emptiness is this cold, like absence of something, when in fact it's just freedom, and freedom isn't necessarily suffering, right? We think that emptiness is suffering. This is suffering. We're in suffering right now. Like, but emptiness and space and energy and consciousness is just an expression of freedom and bliss, right? But because we don't know what that kind of freedom feels like, we keep investing in the realness of everything. But over time, you lose agency, or there's an illusion that you're losing agency because you feel very, very much like it's a compulsory relationship, like you don't have a choice. I have to react, right? We're always reacting. I have to react, and that's just a lie that we've come to believe in. You know, like I have the capacity to respond, but I have to train to remember my capacity to respond over just habitual compulsory reactivity to everything. This is one of the most important expressions, or the most important expression of the Bodhisattva, right, is to respond. Like to choose how to respond to the world, to phenomena, to sensation, not just habitually act, right, without consent or agency. But it's also developing this capacity, which we've been doing many times in this session, to learn just how to rest, and not just a relative rest, not just, oh, I'm gonna go lie down and take a nap kind of rest, right? I'm talking about this profound path of holding space for everything and letting go of habitual reactivity and just allowing everything to arise as it is, right? Both the good and the bad. And that enters into the path of experiencing. Reactivity doesn't allow us space to experience, because reactivity is a bypassing of this initial phenomena, this, whatever it may be, sensation, thought, energy that's arising. We react to it, to push it away, right? It's like when like when you're having a conversation and someone's explaining something and you kind of get it really quickly, you're like, oh, I get it. Like, so you're like, you don't have to keep talking, I do that all the time. You don't have to continue. I know what you're talking about. That's kind of how what intense reactivity is. It's like you think you get it, and then you just start reacting and say, okay, I got it. I don't need the rest of this to emerge. I know what I'm going to do now, which in fact you don't, because you haven't allowed and held space for the totality of that experience to arise. You've gotten a bit and you say, well, that's enough. But to get free, you have to actually hold everything, right? And you think that slows the process down, but actually, since time is just conceptual, there's no slowing down. Anyway, there's an intense kind of deepening of, well, time shifts when you're actually experiencing what's coming up in your experience, right? Let's see. Like you may sit, be working, you may have an experience where you're like going through an emotion. You may think like you've been there for like an hour, and then you get through the experience and like it's been a couple seconds, you know? I think a lot of us have had those experiences where time just kind of like, ooh, what happened? You know? But the deeper you get into this practice and the deeper you get into this work, excuse me, the more time becomes just this concept that's no longer a faction or a factor anymore. Like things will take as long as they need to take, right? Um, so when I say, sometimes people come to me and they say, oh, if I start doing this process that you're talking about, things will slow down. I won't be able to react as quickly as I need to react. And that's actually not the case, because you will be on a different timeline that will feel much quicker than whatever timeline is happening in the collective, right? It's like, for those of you who've had like near death experiences and your whole life flashes before your eyes, that's not a cliche, it really does, right? Because again, you can relive your whole life in a second because time doesn't exist, right? So we're just creating the conditions of the carceral state as we go along, right? And we've made up these rules and we just kind of abide by these rules thinking that, oh, these are the rules, but they're actually not the rules. Dare I mention the matrix here, right? Like once you stop believing in the realness of everything, then you start getting free to move through the carceral state in a way that other beings are not moving through, right? Um, this all still goes back to offering as well. Um, the deeper level of offering here as it connects to everything that I've just shared, right, is this, and it's really hard to articulate here, but this, really, I guess this deeper truth that there's nothing to offer to begin with, right? There's nothing to offer. There's nothing, there's nothing to offer to, right? And but that has to become an experience that's deeply embodied and realized, not just this intellectual thing that we're processing, but becomes something we slowly start to live, right? There's nothing to offer, there's nothing to offer to, right? Things just are. The nature of everything is everything. Like the nature of everything. The nature of one thing is the nature of everything. The nature of everything is the nature of this one thing, right? Everything is empty. Everything is spacious, right? And to rest within an experience of space and emptiness, which is the goal, right, of our practices. Mahamudra being primary, right, and Dzogchen being these primary vehicles that we're trying to remember how to return back to this fundamental essence. And it's from this fundamental essence, right? Again, everything arises, especially the deity. And then over time, like as our practice deepens, we can just like rest right in like that essence, that emptiness, right? But this is training, this is practice, right? Over a period of time, but this is where we're returning back to, right? back into this basic primordial experience, right? Back to the root of everything, the ground level, whatever you want to call it, like the starting program. This is where it is. Like touching into just the freedom of everything. Everything is already free. We just forgot about that. So let's just move into just our practice. And just to let you know, next week we will take a look at the mantra again, just adding another layer to our mantra practice. So I hope many of you are keeping up with your mantra practice. There's going to be more layers of not just mantra, but more layers of this practice coming in the next few months. But for now, I just invite you just to shift your attention to your seat, noticing the weight of your body, making contact with the seat. Just noticing how the seat rises to hold you. So I'm going to invite you just to shift your attention into your heart center. And if you would like, just imagine breathing in and out of your heart center. So within the heart center, I invite you to imagine beginning to awaken your homecoming circle, or just imagining all your benefactors begin to appear in your heart center. And all your benefactors, again, for those of you who are new, or just any being who loves you. You don't have to know who these beings are, but you can just imagine every being who loves me begins to appear. in my heart center. Let's take a few moments to awaken. These benefactors are, the traditional stages of seven homecomings practice, but they begin to appear in your heart center. As they appear, they're radiating the energy and light of unconditional care in the heart center. And our heart center begins to awaken and glow from this care. And slowly this radiance from the light center begins to fill up your whole body. And soon you're glowing. And you become like Tara, like the star, right? Like Mother Tara who radiates, in the sky of the universe, showing us how to move from suffering to freedom. And so you begin to glow like a star, and the light that you're radiating begins to be radiated throughout the whole world and the whole universe. And this radiance begins to purify, eliminate all suffering that all beings are experiencing, all the illness and violence and politics, anything that is a source of suffering. Our radiance from the care of our benefactors begins to cleanse, purify, dissolve all the suffering in the world. And the world around us is transformed into the pure realm, or the world of Medicine Buddha. So this is where Medicine Buddha abides, in this realm that's been freed from all suffering. That is essentially an expression of joy, bliss, space, emptiness. And slowly our bodies begin to dissolve. And with it, dissolving all of these karmic roots or karmic energies that are the basis of our suffering and discomfort. So all of this begins to dissolve in this white light of care, radiating from our benefactors in the heart center. And our consciousness just dissolves and rests within the light of deep care that begins to expand into the space and emptiness of Medicine Buddha's realm. And slowly now, we begin to reform from space and emptiness and light and consciousness. We begin to reform and to take shape as Medicine Buddha. And this time, really thinking of ourselves first as Medicine Buddhas. I am Medicine Buddha to begin with. You don't have to sense or see anything but to say, I am the great healer now. And then to go further, maybe you begin to see yourself as Medicine Buddha, as this Buddha, blue in color and robed, sitting on the lotus seat. Who is an expression of just emptiness, space, energy, joy. And beginning to just rest within the freedom of becoming Medicine Buddha. And we'll begin moving through our mantras, and we'll begin with our opening mantra, Minla Sange Kino, Soha. We're just gonna recite this and chant it 3 times together, okay? And again, if you're new to this, right, this is a mantra that's really calling the consciousness of Medicine Buddha to be present for us right now. And even further, even now, because we are choosing consciously to manifest, to awaken as Medicine Buddha. So we'll chant this 3 times, okay? Om Minla Zange Hino So Om Minla Zange Hino So Om Minla Zange Hino So and we imagine ourselves again as Medicine Buddha themselves. We're just resting within space, emptiness, within this freedom as Medicine Buddha. And as we prepare to begin our main mantra practice, we will, as we begin to chant our mantra, Medicine Buddha's mantra, we're just going to be resting within the space, within the experience of Medicine Buddha, which is an experience of freedom, of spaciousness, fluidity, but also a profound, deep compassion as well. So, beginning our mantra, then we'll take a break from the mantra and offer our prayers, and then return back for a short mantra practice second time around. Okay. O te adong begunze ma begunze, Rasa sumate soa, te adong begunze, begunze ma begunze, Rasa sumate soa. Te adong begunze, begunze ma begunze, Rasa sumate soa. Te adong begunze, begunze ma begunze, Rasa sumate soa. Te adong begunze, begunze ma begunze, Rasa sumate soa. Te adong begunze, begunze ma begunze, Rasa sumate soa. Te adong begunze, begunze ma begunze, Rasa adong begunze, begunze ma begunze, te adong begunze, begunze ma begunze, Rasa sumate soa. Te adong begunze, begunze ma begunze, Rasa sumate soa. Te adong begunze, begunze ma begunze, Rasa sumate soa. Te adong begunze, begunze Now, as we transition into our prayer requests, I invite you, however, first, in the space in front of you, to imagine the re-arising of Medicine Buddha in front of you. And again, you can just have a thought that Medicine Buddha is there, or in your mind, you can visualize Medicine Buddha appearing in front of you, translucent, fluid, just like I don't know, just like an image, right? Just nothing that feels solid, but very light and translucent, appearing in front of you. And as we move into our prayer requests, we're going to imagine that we're offering these prayer requests to the medicine Buddha in front of us, who also is a mirror of ourselves as medicine Buddha as well. So in a way, we're gazing up at a mirror image of who we are as an awakened Buddha. So medicine Buddha also begins to embody all of our benefactors, all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Dharma protectors, all of our benevolent ancestors, all of our guardians, all beings of light are embodied in this arising of medicine Buddha in front of us. So we offer these prayers to medicine Buddha, knowing that medicine Buddha, as an expression of all beings of light and love, will be able to act on our behalf to bring about the fruition of our prayers. We begin. We offer prayers for Randy Cohen as he joins the ancestors, offering prayers for his grieving beloved family, prayers for striking workers, Helen Jim, Amanda, McMurray, and victims of recent mass shootings, Jordan Neely, and the houseless in New York City and everywhere. We're offering prayers for Catherine and the friends and family of her friend who transitioned suddenly in the motorcycle accident. Offering prayers for myself, Vanessa, as I prepare to make a big move and take better care of my body, which has been in discomfort for a while. Offering prayers for Carla as she confronts her anxiety and overcomes a massive emotional obstacle on Wednesday. May she be healthy. May she be protected. Offering prayers for my friend who feels alone in our journey, in her journey. Offering prayers for me as I also feel alone. Offering prayers for us in conflict with friends, family, the world. Offering prayers for all of us who are feeling ragged and triggered and who are targets of unskillful actions from others. Offering prayers for protection of our vulnerable hearts as we practice to stay open in these conditions and hold a space bigger than such difficulties. Offering prayers for myself for wisdom, clarity, understanding in my relationships, prayers for relief of anxiety and to understand what actions are beneficial to myself and others. Offering prayers for my garden project, that many will be blessed with the process and the products of this project. Offering prayers for Claudia Miguel Tavares, who died by suicide recently. May his family and loved ones have everything they need at this time. Prayers for all those who are struggling with drug addiction. Offering prayers for this shoulder and heart injury. May it have the support it needs to heal. May healing be speedy. Offering prayers that this country cease gun violence. Offering prayers for all my beloveds and benefactors. Offering prayers for my ancestors and lineages and spirit guides. Offering prayers for all the young people that they hope and love and stay brave. Offering prayers for myself as I navigate being connected and close to those I care about deeply, my mom and sisters, and all those I'm devoted to and live with, my spouse and daughter, while I shift my foundation slowly, shifting my relationships, all phenomena, including them. It was very disorienting for me, but invisible to others. May I just be patient and not dramatic about it. Offering prayers for all those suffering from illness, prayers for my faith to grow, prayers for me as I navigate triggering experiences in my workplace and personal relationships, May I remember that I am so much more than my dysregulated state. Offering prayers for eight migrants who violently lost their lives this Sunday in Brownsville, Texas. Prayers for all the migrants on the border and beyond navigating the traumas of their migration journey. May they all know peace and dignity. Offering prayers for those experiencing heartbreak, processing breakups, experiencing intimate loss. We're offering prayers for people recovering from disordered eating, people pleasing and manipulation, and learning to be in a relationship with their fair sense of scarcity, with their fear and sense of scarcity. Prayers for Nina and Rishi, may they always be well and ever closer toward freedom. Prayers for Lama Rod, Eric, Karen, and all associated with Miss Marsha. Prayers for Bumima and all forms of the goddess. Prayers for all beings in all realms for swift and complete freedom. Prayers for myself, my health and well-being, and for focus and perseverance to finish the graduate program, to finish the graduate degree. So, prayers for my dad who has been diagnosed with dementia, my mom who is caring for him, and prayers for Robin who is in the hospital with complications following surgery. Prayers for all of us healing from our earliest attachment wounds. May we find comfort and ease and joy. Offering prayers for members of the North Carolina legislature that they find their hearts in their goodness and that they vote with both. Prayers for Tom, who underwent triple bypass surgery last week. Father Bailey, who had surgery for lung cancer last week. For Elizabeth, and for Kia Kina, who died recently. For Shia Eisenberg, and as he works with a new device to reduce his chronic pain. For Mahan Silver, recovering for surgery to repair torn tendons in both knees. Offering prayers for clarity, guidance, ease, and strength as I reflect upon and continue to work through challenges around shifting my relationships with my partner and myself. Love and ease to my wider web of beloveds and all beings. My anxiety and anger about the hideous events in my state, North Carolina, and this country that show the preference some politicians have for cruelty over making sure all people are resourced and cared for. Offering prayers to be able to rest, as Lama Rod is teaching tonight, for healing for my knees so I can regain mobility and health. Prayers for the Black Power Coalition that their requests be met with willingness and most of all, humanity. Prayers for Irina, who is undergoing chemotherapy and radiation, and for all those who are struggling with health difficulties, may they be held in love and ease. Offering prayers for myself as I navigate a toxic workplace and harassment, for my politics and ways of teaching about oppression, racism, heterosexism, and transphobia. May those who are investigating and judging my case have compassion. May all structures of oppression and institutional harm be lifted as quickly as possible. May I learn to look upon myself and my life and my world with eyes of love and understanding. Offering prayers for Michelle and Kwas. Offering prayers for my friend Scarly, who is experiencing a manic episode and difficulty sleeping. May she rest deeply and fully as soon as possible. I'm offering prayers for Arda and her peaceful transition, gratitude that her suffering in this life has finished. I'm offering prayers for Nani in the Bardo. We offer prayers also for Cavali's mother, that she may have an easeful transition into the Bardo and beyond, and for the deep well-being and care of Cavali and her family. Offer a prayer for all authentic teachers and all spiritual traditions who are really working and teaching to get people free from suffering. And may all teachers who are getting in the way of freedom somehow be removed and authentic teachers, their platform and their teaching be emphasized. And we continue to pray for the complete abolishment of all institutions and systems that keep all of us from experiencing the deepest well-being, happiness, joy, safety, and having resource and having access to all the resources that we need. And may all those gathered in this space tonight and practice be deeply blessed, and that you all may have what you need in order to continue your work of reducing harm and violence for yourself and all those connected to you. And we offer these prayers, and these aspirations, and these needs to Medicine Buddha. And as we return back into the last bit of our mantra practice, just imagine that the Medicine Buddha in front of us begins to glow and radiate, filling the whole universe with this healing and blessing energy, bringing to fruition all the prayers that we've offered. We return back. O te agam veganze, veganze, ma veganze, vaza sunga te soa. Te agam veganze, veganze, ma veganze, vaza sunga te soa. Te agam veganze, veganze, ma veganze, vaza sunga te soa. Begenze, begenze, ma begenze, lasse sumungane soa. Beata, begenze, begenze, ma begenze, lasse sumungane soa. Beata, begenze, begenze, ma begenze, lasse sumungane soa. Begenze, begenze, ma begenze, lasse sumungane soa. Beata, 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 begenze, begenze, ma begenze, lasse sumungane soa. Now we return our attention back up to the medicine Buddha in front of us. And we thank medicine Buddha for their guidance, their love, their liberation, their healing. And after we thank them, we imagine that medicine Buddha begins to dissolve into white light. And that white light is absorbed into our heart centers as medicine Buddha as well. And then we imagine that we, as medicine Buddhas, begin to dissolve into white light. And this white light dissolves into emptiness. And our consciousness, our awareness begins to just rest within emptiness and space itself. And so slowly now we begin to rearise back into our physical bodies, reminding ourselves that we are embodied again, beginning to offer some slow awakening movements to your body. And then we're going to turn our attention to Shantideva's prayer, which is appearing in the chat box. We're going to recite this 3 times. And we begin. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I always be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I always be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. Finally, may I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I always be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. Thank you so much for your practice. Just another little thing here about Medicine Buddha. So it's not sometimes in the traditional teachings of Medicine Buddha, I know some of you have joined at different times over the past couple of years. We've been doing Medicine Buddha, which has been 3 years since the quarantine. I've talked a lot about the tradition of Medicine Buddha. One part of Medicine Buddha is that many kinds of beings collaborate with Medicine Buddha taking on Medicine Buddha's form to act on their behalf, to do the work of healing and liberation and so forth. So that's happening. And also what's happening too, when we talk about healing in the practice, sometimes it's not so much that, for instance, the illness itself is being healed, but it is our suffering around the experience of discomfort that's being disrupted, right? And so, and of course, I came to this because, I'm just on the other end of the sinus infection, and it's not that I feel bad, I'm just a little tired and congested, but it's not that like I'm suffering, right? It's not that I'm suffering. I'm still connected to a sense of joy and gratitude. It's just that I have this physical experience arising, right, that may feel uncomfortable, but it's not disconnecting me from experiences of joy and gratitude in the moment. And I think this is an important offering of Medicine Buddha as well, as to actually free us from the suffering of sickness. Because there will always be the pain of sickness, but of course, suffering is something that we're also creating on top of the basic sensations of discomfort, right? So suffering is pushing away. So I'm not necessarily pushing away, I'm just allowing what's happening to happen, right? And that cuts through suffering, and that is one of the blessings of the practice. Okay. Is that the root of, yeah, the root of suffering is aversion, right? It's not pain, it's pushing away pain. That's what suffering is. Pain is pain. Pain is just inevitable. But suffering is something that can be abolished, right? Through practice. Abolishment of suffering, which is aversion, actually brings us into a relationship with pain where we actually begin to touch into the nature of pain. The nature of pain is the nature of everything. Pain is no other than Medicine Buddha. Medicine Buddha is no other than pain. Again, emptiness is emptiness, right? Everything is an expression of emptiness. There's nothing that lies outside of emptiness, right? Even the most intense forms of violence are expressions of emptiness, right? And it is our misunderstanding and confusion about emptiness that gives rise to these narratives and realities of carcerality, which are just expressions of violence, Okay. All right, well, thank you everyone for your practice. Take a look at the 7 Homecomings course coming up next week. And this is a great way to deepen your practice around Medicine Buddha and to have the confidence to share this with others, which is the main point of our practice together. Okay, I think that is it for us, and I hope to see some of you in different spaces over the course of this week. Okay. Thank you all so much, and be well.